Hello and welcome to Nodes and Biscuits, a Godot game dev podcast. Today I interview the two developers of a visually stunning and seemingly super fun game called Stunt Xpress. It's a game where you drive delivery vans while tossing out parcels and making stunts. A vehicular physics sandbox featuring procedurally generated levels and other roguelike elements. It will come out on early access later this year. And now that you know what this episode is going to be about, let's head straight into it. Wow, you look younger than 40. You do. Maybe it's the blur on the camera, but
Yeah, that helps. No, I don't. I guess I'm not the oldest of my peers, of my of my schoolmates, who I see sometimes.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, age is just a number, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I so very often see people who are in their 60s and they're just the freshest people around, right? Yeah.
At least in their minds.
At least in their minds, and then sometimes I meet a person who's 30 years old and they're like, oh, my back, I'm about to die, I'm so old. And I really reconsider the priorities in my life when I see this. I'm like, you're 30 and there's this person next to you who's 60 and I just very active.
This is good material. Are we recording?
We are recording, yeah. This is definitely going to be the beginning of the podcast. So
Talking about ages.
Yeah, so actually, let's just hop right into it. This is the first time I'm talking to both of you, which is fantastic. It's also one of the reasons why I started the podcast too. I mentioned this on the previous podcast where one of the reasons why I started this is purely out of an egotistical reason where I just really want to meet all the really cool people doing really cool stuff. And you definitely fall into that category. So yeah, Raphael and Jakub, you are the guests today, and let's just have you both introduce yourselves in a way, who you are and what you do.
All right. So maybe I'll go first. My name is Raphael, and I am an artist by training, and I had a career in filmmaking, at least until very recently. I think I still have one. But I'm pivoting towards game dev since seriously like 2 years. And of course, it's a process that starts before, but I mean, a process that was always there to start with. So, how about Jakub?
Okay, so my name is Jakub Majewski, and I'm a software and game developer. I'm working professionally at Pineapple Works. What can I say? I have experience with freelancing, making websites and stuff like this, and also I was working in the corporation, the typical Java code and such. Now I'm making games, and my main job at Pineapple Works is UX, UI design, and game design. Game design is important because when we get a game which we want to publish, we want to improve this if it's possible. So my feedback, a goal of my feedback is to just improve the game for the developer, and developer can accept this feedback, make something about this, or just ignore. But yeah, I'm doing actually a lot of game design too in the Pineapple Works.
Jakub, this is super interesting, by the way. Let's just start with this right away. Do developers usually accept the feedback or just dismiss it?
Yes, they accept the feedback. They like this feedback, to be honest. And Rafael is an example of that. I'm here because Rafael liked my feedback about his game.
This is even more interesting. So, how do you work together?
Yes, we are working together, and there is nothing like Rafael is doing more or I'm doing more. We are equal.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, there is the one aspect that if it comes to when it comes to art, like asset producing, I usually take care of that. And Jakub obviously has a stronger background in everything technical and game design concepts. So, but yeah, we appreciate each other's feedbacks on our specialties. I guess. I mean, I don't have much to say about programming for Jakub because it's such a something that it's most of the time it's either it works and it's well done, or I mean, you can have, I imagine, a subjective view of the quality of a code, but I mean, we're not too much into that. We're mostly most of the time, and I think it's the most fun part of our collaboration is that we're talking about game design and coming up with ideas and yeah.
Yeah, and this really shows. I mean, for the context of our listeners, right? The game you're working on. Tell us. Right. So the game you're working on is Stunt Express.
Exactly.
From the very
Yes.
first moment I saw it on Twitter, I fell in love. I was like, this is something that's just going to fly off the shelves. It's beautiful. I want to play. I want to touch this. Right? If this was food, I would eat it. And that was my
Hey,
first response.
that's crazy that you're using those words because I only recently realized that this was what I was thinking while looking at the art of an artist that I like very much, who is also into game dev. He might be slightly older than me. He's like a really old school guy back from the pixel art era.
Wonderful.
And Ilka. Well, I actually never met him in real life, but I imagine he's a little bit older than me. And that's the feeling that I get when I see his art, is that I want to eat it. And I can't explain this. I mean, it's kind of a little bit bizarre.
It's a great emotion to experience when you're watching
Yeah.
something beautiful, really. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also, you mentioned what you had done in the past, and now it all makes sense because, okay, so the trailer for Stunt Express was recently released. Right. Well, not recently. I mean, it's been a month, maybe, roughly around that time.
Yeah, something like that, I guess.
More
But
or less.
I wouldn't be able to say
Right,
to
and
pinpoint it.
and your professional experience, you probably made it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Because it really shows that it's all nice and beautiful. The game looks great. There's a great color palette, but the moment where the van flies off and it flies into the logo and it becomes the logo, I flew off my chair.
I'm glad to hear that. That's the reaction we want from viewers.
Yeah, I thought to myself, this is too good. When I was not expecting the car to become the logo? How?
If you like this, I think you will love our main menu screen, right, Rafael?
Okay, wait, tell me about the main menu screen.
I don't know what he's talking about.
So we had
he's going off
an
script.
idea to make a main menu, like you saw the logo in the trailer. The vehicle is jumping out of the screen, right? With this animation to create this logo.
Beautiful.
Stuff like this.
I think we should see that before announcing it. But yeah, it's not done yet. So let's see.
Yeah,
if
it's
that's
not
even
done
possible.
yet. But I think it was worth to mention this because the topic.
Yeah, we had a long discussion about this. We're sharing references from the games that we like together with Jakub, and yeah, we were thinking like this moment is actually sometimes overlooked by game developers. The moment that you land in the game from the and Jakub's example is actually Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, Baldur's Gate, yeah, no, it's
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
How it goes from the splash screen into and you dive into this.
I love that. I love that. I had
transition.
The transition. I had a similar experience when I was playing Wild Rift on mobile. so League of Legends, Wild Rift, and mobile, and it all felt like I was never taken out of the game. Right, I turned it on the phone, and there were graphics, the main menu, the usual thing you have. And then I pressed play, and when I pressed play, it gave me the selection of champions. Pressed the champion, and suddenly the game zoomed in, and I was like, "What? How is there not a loading screen here?" Right? But let's take a couple of steps back. I think this topic of Stunt Express is just the most interesting thing in the universe at the moment. So, so let's start with the beginning of the game. When did you start making it? Why did you start making it? And when did Jakub come into the picture?
All right, so this is the point in the interview in which I zoom off talking about my life.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah. So my actual job, I mean my career is in filmmaking. So and specifically in animated film and motion design. So I was animation lead in a studio in Brussels for 7 years, and when I got in, like the studio was still figuring out. They had a portfolio in live action, but they wanted to get started in digital image, and so they hired me for that. And so when I got there, I was the first one. So I got the opportunity to shape it as I saw fit, a little bit to my taste, and in terms of tools as well. And it's important to mention that I have been using Blender since 2008, 2009, something like that.
That's funny you say that. I started using it around 2011, 2010. The UI was just boxes, and there was very little UI. Everything was keyboard shortcuts. Yeah.
It was really a moment in which you were publicly mocked
Yes.
for admitting that you would use Blender, professionally or something. And so by being like the first guy in animation in the studio, gave me the opportunity to convince my bosses that we should use Blender. Of course, they were running around seeing like other opinions, and they were kind of afraid, like to bet all this in a free software that you don't know if it's going to still be around in 2 years or something. And but I managed. I mean, they were eventually very seduced by the fact that it's free and you don't have to pay any licenses. So I managed to implement Blender as the main tool for 3D in the studio, and everyone that came in had to, if they didn't have control over Blender, they needed to switch. And so all the interns, all that, they usually came with another software background, and I usually not push them to switch, but invited them to maybe discover this tool that we use at the studio.
Wonderful.
And,
was this in Portugal?
No, Brussels.
Brussels, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Porto, and where I'm currently based at, but I spent most of my adult life first in Paris and then in Brussels. Yeah, that's. I got a family and all that, and then I moved back with them to Portugal.
Okay.
And
Nice.
this, where was I? Yeah, talking about Blender. So and when you work with Blender, and sometimes we had other people come in, people that were very good at Blender, and there were not so many back in the day. But so these people were quite passionate about open source, and by discussing with them, we discovered that also there was a friend. Well, before it was a colleague, now it is a friend that we had a shared interest in video games, and he said, "So I'm trying to make a small video game in this thing called Godot, and it's open source like Blender." And I was like, I don't know, man. It's such a headache sometimes with Blender, and not finding people that know how to work with Blender. And maybe if I will give it a try, I'll go with something like an established engine. I don't want to have all these headaches. And I tried Unity for a couple of weeks, and I couldn't it didn't stick. And then I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, from coming into it without any background, it's kind of, I have an artist background basically. And so I felt it was quite difficult to jump on board, even though I'm used to learning new software and I'm not at all scared of coding. But imagine in VFX, you learn new software all the time. There's always new plugins, new stuff to master. So you have to keep on educating yourself. So anyway, I tried this Unity and it didn't work. And then I came back to this friend and said, "Yeah, but you should give it a try. Let's do something together and all this." And since then, I gave it a try and didn't look back.
What year was this?
This must have been something like when I first really started. Maybe 2017, something like that.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I think the first time I ever found out about Godot was around that time, and I couldn't do it. I've mentioned this before. I couldn't do it just because of the UI. It felt too much like a toy sci-fi UI from the 90s, and I just felt uncomfortable. And then the only time I got into Godot was when it was 3.0 alpha, I think.
All right, but then you have to give us some context, because you asked us who we were, but you didn't tell us who you are. What's your background?
Oh, right. Well, I'm a game developer at the moment.
No, but I mean,
making games. Yeah.
Like you have like Jakub have a background in computer science, or
no. I'm basically self-taught on all fronts. So I program, game design, also do art in 3D. I took a gap year between secondary school and college, high school, right? Not between high school and university, but before that. And I just did a lot of tutorials on 3D. I eventually got into things. I got into game development by using Blender Game Engine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I hit a wall there. I hit a very strong wall and had to learn Python. That was wild. But so that's roughly, how it all started with me there. So when did you get to working on Stunt Xpress? Was it your first project by any chance?
No. So, I mean, serious project, yes, but not the first one. Absolutely. So I had this thing with this friend that he wanted to do a video game, and I thought, yeah, it's cool. Let's do a video game together. So at this point, I really knew nothing about Godot, and I was like staring at the screen, I was scratching my head, and where do I start? But eventually, I mean, it wasn't a super serious thing. We both had our jobs, we both had our families. It was really something that we did in our spare time, and yeah, but he kind of never thought of it as something that he always thinks of it as something that will be his hobby forever, and that his life is in 3D, and that's the way it is, and he doesn't believe that you actually can have a career in game dev, or it's like it's too late for me or something. And if you're listening, Ronald, and I'm not at all like that. And after 7 years of that company, I said, "Fuck it," I think I stayed here long enough, and I can't grow anymore where I am. So I had this need of new things, and so I even changed countries. I moved back to Portugal, and I went little by little going into this to try to make an actual game. I first started with some small experiments, and actually one of the first experiments was to try the vehicle mode type. And I did a small game for a record label online. Like, this was in HTML5, and that you had this very weird van with this camouflage, that hassle dazzle camouflage from World War One, from the battleships. This
Wow.
very high
Okay.
contrast black and white things. So you had this on the van, and you had this on the landscape. It was kind of a moon landscape, and you could drive this van. And it was just funny to see that how simply you could get working physics with a vehicle. And this was quite a hit locally. I mean, it was, it actually had some very experimental stuff. Jakob doesn't know about this. This is exclusive. It had some very experimental thing. It's just stemming from the fact that I didn't know what I was doing. And by you were driving the van on this moon landscape, and by pressing some controls, you would spawn. You had two controls. You could even either spawn a giant ball or spawn another vehicle like yours. So when you spawned another vehicle like yours, the other vehicle appeared in some random location in the map, and then you were also driving it. But because of physics, your inputs didn't match what was happening with the car. So you'd actually have this situation. You were ramming yourself. Can you see? Can you visualize this?
I love it.
It
yes.
is completely
yes.
psychedelic thing. I think I can still unearth it at some point. Maybe show.
Oh yeah.
But it's I call this what was I calling this, like GTA, psychedelic GTA game.
A good name.
Yeah, and match the music, the record label's music, they're pretty far out, and yeah, so that was that, and then yeah, so at one point, and now I'm getting to answer your question finally. At one point, I really decided. I sat one day and think, I have these couple of things that I like the most about game dev. I like all of it, but the things that I like the most about game dev is modular kit design for landscape, for environment, and procedural generation. And these two are connected: procedural generation and modular. And the second thing is this physics, sandbox physics. And so I also sat down in front of the computer and think, so I have these two things, and I'm looking up a list on the internet, like what's the easiest type of game that you can make. And right, like close to the top, there was racing game. So okay, let's get started. So at that point, that was just it. There was just these two things that I knew that I wanted to do, and the fact that this was supposed to be, when you start a game, you often think, I mean, at least for me, in my last experience, was this is gonna last like 3 months.
In other words, Rafael thought it will be easy to make a game with vehicle movement.
It was written on the internet, my friend.
These sorts of games are easy.
Why would I doubt it? It was on the top
it's
of
the list. It's just
list.
a car with the physics. What can be hard with this?
Oh yeah. Don't do an MMO. Start with a car physics game.
You see, I followed that advice. No, of course, that was very naive of me. I'm a different person now. I learned a lot.
He's learning slowly.
Bit by bit, yeah. And so, was this around the time when you posted your first content on Twitter?
Exactly. So I didn't really have an online presence before that. I didn't see why. Well, I usually just browse for news and stuff like that. I posted like small bits, but not really consistent or anything. And as I started making the game, I started engaging a bit more like an actual devlog. And so posting frequently, warts and all. And I have this thing that, with making films, making videos, it comes natural for me when I see like I'm trying something. I see, ooh, this is a nice sequence, and so I'll just capture it and put it on Twitter. And yeah, it was met with quite a good reception.
I remember.
I was
Yeah.
I was very I was amazed, and that's also why the project just continued existing past the first 3 months that I thought it was just going to be that. And yeah, it's the feedback. I mean, the people were so pleased to see it that maybe I tapped into something. And yeah, I started getting also contacted by publishers, and yeah, maybe you want to get back. Maybe I don't know.
No. This is all good. So
All right.
you started getting contacted by publishers, and now I imagine that one of those publishers was Pineapple Express. Pineapple Express. Wow,
Almost.
I'm getting it. Yeah, I'm getting this mixed up now. Pineapple Works, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
So Wojtek from Pineapple Works was one of the ones contacting me. He was not the first one, and so with each one that contacted me, well, I did a small background check, and yeah, then engaged or didn't, because yeah, I guess you can also get like all sorts of some shady business. But yeah, Wojtek was really nice. We chatted for some time, and he was asking me how I felt about having a publisher. I think it was a good. I always thought that if the occasion, the opportunity presented itself, that I would take it, but not any publisher. The main reason why I decided to sign up with Pineapple Works was, apart from the fact that they're very nice, but it's also the fact that they have a very acute expertise in Godot, so that helps a lot. And it's not just a question of financing or Q&A. It's they were willing to get involved as deep as actually helping me with coding. The fact that I was a newcomer to coding. So
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to say that from my experience interacting with Pineapple Works has always felt very genuine. So I can share that sentiment. Yeah, absolutely. And so this moment in time was also when Jakub joins the picture, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but I was
Okay. Yes.
No, I was interacting with Wojtek for quite a long time.
Ah, okay.
Well, they were also, I mean, they were busy with other projects as well, and mine was slowly growing, and I was also keeping out the options open with other publishers. But yeah, it was about the time that I think I shared the first builds that I shared with them. And it was when they got feedback from those builds, and that's when Jakub joined the picture as a game designer.
Nice. So Jakub, how was that to you? Your first experience with the game? Tell us a little bit about that one.
Maybe I will start. Because in the Pineapple Works we work like this. We look at games on the Twitter, and we will see something what is interesting. We are trying to contact with the developer and ask if he's interested. And for me, that thing that clicked for me, why Stunt Xpress can be this game, was the donut buff or power up. It was probably power up.
It was a power up, yeah.
Yeah. That was the moment when I saw this, and those buildings moving down to the ground. the animations and stuff, I knew Rafael know what he's doing.
I knew that
and
Raphael was crazy. That's what I was going to say.
yeah. And yeah, I knew this is a right person and I want to work with him. So I prepared a feedback for the back then it was extra urgent, I believe it was
True.
called.
It's a name changed.
Yeah, name changed, but then it was called extra urgent, and I prepared a big game design feedback document. It was a few pages long, probably 7.
Damn, that's a
7
lot of
or 8.
reading. Wow.
Yeah, it was all about mechanics in the demo, like what is there, why something shouldn't be there, and alternatives, the reasons why, and such like this. I'm when I'm preparing a feedback for developers, I'm never saying something is bad. You should change this. It's not good. I always want to think what developer thought when doing something. So, for example, Rafael wanted to create a game about delivery vans and such. So I had to think about this and not adding guns to the game, right?
Right.
So this is example. So that's one thing. Another is I'm always trying to prepare alternatives. I'm not talking something is bad, you should change this. I'm talking, I think this is not good. You probably can change this to something better. Here are alternatives. What can you do? And why it would work better. And every single alternative has its cons and pros. Rafa can say if that's true.
Yeah. I think that, you know, I've been thinking. I've been actually making games for. I mean, not regularly, but making games has been something that goes back way back in my life. I was preparing puzzles for my classmates in primary school, and this was nobody asked me to do this. I had this this kind of a shift in the conversation theme. It's not, but I'll get to the point soon. I had this Lego magnets. Somehow they disconnected from the pieces they were attached to, and I came up with this idea where I'd make a puzzle based on places in the school, like written riddles. Where is the next clue? And the next clue will always be attached with a magnet somewhere, where a magnet can stick. And so this was I got early in the morning to the school and I placed all these clues, and in intervals, like in the break time, all the kids from my class would gather around me and they were expecting the first clue. So I gave them the first clue and they were, what does he mean by this? And they were running all around the school trying, no, he means this, no, he means that. And then they would find the magnet and, oh, I found the clue for the next clue. And so in the next class break, this would start again, and then until they would find the last clue, which usually would have like a drawing that I made or a candy or something like that. So yeah. So this just to say that it's not my first foray into it's, you wouldn't call this game design, right? But it's
sure.
it's a
No,
passion.
that is 100% game design. 100%.
Right, but not professionally, and that's my point. I also made not a tabletop game, but like a social game that you could play with friends in parties. And I did this as an art project while I was living in Poland, because I lived in Poland for 1 year. Long story, and that's why I have this connection with Poland, and Pineapple Works. And so in those and that was like a social game that you could play in parties, and that was also a huge hit. And I only ever did like 4 boxes of that, and they all gone. I don't have any
Oh.
for myself. Yeah, and it was called the Edge game.
Interesting. So, well, from what you're saying, it sounds like every time you even without knowing it, you tried game design, it worked out really well.
Well, I mean, selling 4 copies is not exactly, a record-setting
Well,
thing.
that's
But
one thing, but still
yeah,
receiving a considerable amount of positive feedback on
but
something.
but
That's
but
good.
but that's the thing. And when I talk about, when people are, how's it going with your professional life and all that, and I say I'm making video games, and I don't know, these people that are not at all into game dev, what they think that I'm doing, like this. Yeah, they have this preconceived idea of what a video game is, whereas I'm not doing, I guess, it's not what I'm doing actually. But but yeah, the thing that is incredible with games in general is, and I got this feeling from very early on, is that when you put this game, when you announce this game, when you explain the game to the people, and they get the rules, and they get going on doing it, you can see the look on their faces, like the wonder, the excitement, and this is an incredible feeling for myself as a creator to see that I have provoked this in someone else is an incredible feeling. And yeah, what were we talking about?
I can back to the question because the question was
no.
what
The question. Sorry.
what I felt playing
No,
first
wait.
time.
Yeah.
Let me just get to the point that I wanted to make, is that
So there was a point.
no, the point is that the final point is that whereas I have all these intentions and ideas, but I don't really have kind of an academic background in game design. I never studied this, and never read a book about this. I'm not saying that Jakub also has a diploma on it, but he definitely has a more structured view about what game design is. And even in our discussions, I'm talking about one thing, and he's telling me, "Oh, you mean this?" And there's actually a term for that I didn't know about previously. So it really does help, and it complements quite well. But go ahead, Jakub.
Yeah. So the question was what I felt when playing first time the Extra Argent demo. When I played this,
Was absolute crap.
it was clunky.
All right. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, it was clunky, definitely. Sorry, Rafael, but that's the truth.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
And I was trying to have fun with it, driving in the city and such, and it wasn't fun. And something was wrong about this, because when I saw all the clips on the Twitter, it looked fine, right? The animations, the mechanics, and then such. So I was thinking, what's wrong here? And I started to writing this document, pointing out what I think doesn't feel right, and stuff like this, what could be changed. But I also was thinking why this isn't good if on the Twitter it looks fantastic. And my goal was to give a feedback that would recreate the game from the Twitter and make it reality.
I see what you're saying. So you kept the context of what you remembered being good and fun from the visuals, and you were trying to see how you could put that into the game.
It was like I saw posts on the Twitter, the GIFs, videos, and everything. I saw people like this. I also liked this. But when I tried the demo, I didn't feel it. Something was off. So I wanted to understand what's going on. That why I feel like something is not right. But the Twitter posts are great, and I think I got this. I prepared this feedback, and one of the main things was what actually is the game and what's the goal of this, because idea was to create a delivery game, but at the same time there was a mechanic of getting points for acrobatics in the air and such. So it didn't feel right. Like it really shouldn't be the game only about delivering boxes, packages. And on the Twitter also, it didn't look like a game about delivering boxes. It was just part of things. So I proposed the idea to create a game, to make this game something like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, but with cars. And that's how it started. Rafael loved this idea. And we started thinking about this game not like it's a delivery game, but it's a game where you can do fun stuff like on the Twitter posts, and delivery cars are just a part of the game, but not core of the game.
Incredible.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And also from my subjective experience, when I was watching the Twitter videos, I wasn't sure whether you're a delivery van or a Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
You're both.
Yeah. And I was curious. I was one of my main points of curiosity there was, where is he going to go? How is he going to, not solve this, but which direction will this game choose as the dominant direction?
Yes, well, there is the fact that delivering boxes is not like a buried idea in this new design. It's there, and it's but just to get back to the timeline, this was about around the moment where I started making these huge ramps, like these half pipes, and experimenting with that. And that was really, from navigating what was the first procedural modular map that I had made. Was too tiny. Like the streets were small, and you felt like you were always hitting something. And that's why also it felt good when you had this donut power up, which just made the buildings sink before your path. It felt very liberating to experiment with this huge half pipe arena thing, and all the crazy speeds that you could get without being hindered by any obstacle. And the fact that like almost by default there wasn't really like a button like you turn that to make the van turn. It's just the fact, and this is something that I just discovered while trying, and this really puts in perspective the value of all the game design documents that we produced up until then, is that when you actually try it and then you see like, oh, you can actually, like when you go off the ramp, if you just turn a bit, like at the very last moment, then it creates some sort of torque, which makes your van really behave like exactly like in Skate.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, Raphael, how much did the game's design change course after Jakub's document got to you?
A lot. this was all things that I needed to hear. I felt I was kind of stuck. I was kind of in a muddy situation where I knew that the game looked good, but it wasn't fun. And so, but I really didn't know where to. It seemed like something unsurmountable back then, and the fact that Jakob came in really cleared a number of things, and it's like a bit like with everything. I usually enjoy working alone, but it's when you get a teammate that you just feel this good chemistry going on. It's really it's incredibly powerful. It's the key to success.
That really changes things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
what are your roles? And yes, Jakub, feel free.
I have one example
Good.
because I remember one of the things I know mentioned in the document was the space is not big enough to drive the car, and I was thinking how we can solve this.
Imagine how that hit me after spending a number the work to make that modular set based on
Rafael, my entire
it's on me. I didn't test it before.
entire procedurality, but yeah, it felt wrong, too tight. You didn't have any space to move and get speed and such. So I was thinking how we can solve this, and I proposed one of the things I proposed in the document was to just convert square grid to hex grid.
Interesting.
And day after this, after Rafael read the document, I already saw on the Twitter a prototype of hex grid for the city, and I was just wow.
That's some incredible speed. Just a day after? No way.
It's very flattering. I'm not sure that I would I'm sure that I made that in one day, but yeah.
It was day and a half, something like this.
Well, the truth is that I had already prepared before the suggestion. I already had like a base plate for Xgrid. Not for another. It was for another project, but yeah, I had the template. So I said, yeah, well not.
Nice one.
And, yeah.
And so specifically speaking, what are your roles in the team at the moment? And what's your dynamic like? Do you chat on Discord? Do you have Jira set up, perhaps? How does that work?
So we are using version control GitHub, and I'm doing programming, the algorithmic stuff. This is something I love. For example, I'm doing every year Advent of Code. Maybe you heard about this.
I've heard of it. I don't know much about it.
I got some stars there. It's basically a challenge, 1 month long challenge, where every day you have one algorithmic challenge, and after release it stays there forever. So you can always go back to this. You can
nice.
you can see answers from different people and solutions, so you can learn also. It's every December, and it lasts 20-25 days. But let's back to the topic. I really love working with algorithms. So I'm in the Stunt Xpress. I'm doing stuff like AI, for example, for enemies. I'm also had to make some refactoring. Actually, a lot of refactoring after I joined the project. I was teaching Rafael a little bit of programming, I can say.
Awesome.
So
I often refer to him on the Discord as Sensei.
I have some background in the college. I was helping a lot of people with programming too. So yeah, it wasn't my first time trying to explain something to someone who is learning.
Teaching is a skill. It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, Jakub was really invaluable in rethinking the whole architecture of how things were organized. Obviously, starting from scratch, I didn't know how to do it, so I just at first it's just a small prototype. There's really no architecture, just pile things up. And of course, and you must imagine, this is what Jakub found. Imagine the chaos, the confusion inside, and he had to, but he dealt with it really masterfully, and now the house is all cleaned up and very tidy. And
I also made a lot of work when it comes to porting game from 3.x to 4.x Godot.
I have very juicy questions about that. That's going to be very interesting. Right. Okay. So wait, just to get that straight. So you're doing programming and game design. Yeah. Cool.
Game design, programming. I'm teaching Rafael how to programming, and I'm doing UX UI design too.
Okay.
So the controls, right? Idea for the controls, how player will drive with gamepad and keyboard, right? And stuff like this.
You also mentioned this before the start of the podcast, just before when we had that quick chat, that you have experience with porting games and specifically UI, right? So I imagine that you also get round to the controls fairly often in that scenario.
I'm doing UI and UX, and UX is much bigger than just UI. UX is, like the name says, user experience, right? So everything what user do and gets a feedback about this from the software is a user experience. So, for example, the controls are part of the user experience, right? Or moving between windows in the interface, right? It's also user experience. Or shortcuts, if there are any shortcuts on the keyboard which you can use to get somewhere faster. Also, user experience is reducing amount of clicks to get somewhere, right?
Yes.
User experience is also a progression. For example, what player have to do to progress in the game, but not from the game design perspective, but from the actions which he have to make.
I see.
Right?
That's an interesting distinction. Right. So the actions, you mean the actions they have to do mechanically with the mouse, with the gamepad?
Yeah. For example, to progress in the Elden Ring, you have to sit next to Grace, right, and enter the menu with the stats and use runes, right, to increase stats. This is 3 steps, where the first step is also requires traveling to the nearest Greece. So this is user experience. It's not a game design.
To me, it almost, because I'm not a professional in this field, but it almost sounds like the line between UX and game design is not exactly perfectly clear. It's a little blurry, is it not?
Yes. It's blurred. However, the UX is mostly, but I will say it that way. When someone is talking about UX, they probably think about UI too, not about game design.
Yes.
It's always UI and UX, not UX and game design.
Yes.
But in reality, UX is both and UI and game design and everything else.
Well, I think I think it goes back to how small teams work. When you imagine a game designer in a small studio, that person is usually the one looking at game design, UI, and UX as if it was a single task almost. From my experience, anyway, where without the game design, you can't define the UI. So that very often sort of starts from there, and then the smaller the amount of people you have, the more concentrated it comes into a single blob of work. Where I feel it also slightly defines how it branches out, right? So you
yes. Game design defines a UX, and UX defines the UI. Because UI is just the visuals, right?
Oh, nice. I never thought about
it
that way.
It's not a flow. UI is not a flow where you have to click to get somewhere, and how many clicks it will require. It's not UI. It's UX.
Right.
UI are just visuals. UI is for artists, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's these are just two different things, UX and UI.
Absolutely. And Raphael, at the moment, are you still programming?
Yes, well, when everything that Jakub says he does on the video game, I also do it. I mean, even though I don't have a background in stars in algorithm, I can't help myself dabbling into that, and mine are really goofy next to his. But yeah, sometimes it's it's a bit of the fun of it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, when it's not well made, and I'm naive enough to try some silly stuff, and it works.
Nice. And also, right, so before we head on to a couple of questions about Godot, I'm still curious about that. I just wanted to ask, I remember seeing this one video where you showed a process of how you model the van, right? That was a lovely therapeutic almost video where you first I don't remember exactly. Did you draw it on paper first?
So my workflow is it doesn't change too much, but the order of things changes sometimes. And I think that the video that you're referring to, I was on a flight and I had a tablet, and that I used to draw, and I do most of my textures on a tablet with just a painting software, and so in this time it really went like I just drew the side of the van, and as soon as I landed and I had a PC, I just modeled on top. But then you would UV unwrap it and then get back into the painting app and do an actual finished thing. But you could also already see by just projecting the texture onto the model, you can already see more or less how it will look, and so it's just a back and forth between the 3D and the painting app.
Is this a technique that you created specifically for this game, or during the process of making this game, or is this something you picked up beforehand? How did you find it?
You want the long version or the short version?
We don't have the time for the long version, so let's do the short one. But I'll invite you over for the next episode, and we can talk about the long one.
All right. So the short version is that having used 3D software before and having done some hand-painted textures before, I knew when starting this game that this was a workflow. The workflow had to be a pleasurable moment for me, because there's going to be so much of it, so many models and so many textures, that this shouldn't be something that is tedious and that is long. Obviously, you don't want it to be long, because otherwise you'll finish your game in 2030. But I think that the most important thing is that it has to be fun, and this is the fun process that I found. I don't usually do it like first drawing, then modeling, then texturing. Sometimes it's just straight modeling and just texturing, and sometimes I even just do it all in Blender, and that's like paradise because there's no barriers between an app.
I love that. So you also do the texture painting in Blender as well, right?
Exactly.
Love it.
And
Love it. Yes.
although the brushes are at least limited, I haven't explored much, but the default one.
I think that's one of the beauties where there is a limitation imposed on you, right? And
Yes,
you have
yes,
to work with
exactly.
it. You have to work around it. Now,
Like pixel art.
like pixel art, exactly. That's why pixel art is so difficult. But
It's so beautiful.
I am doing pixel art actually.
I tip my hat to you. Really, that's a tough challenge. Every time I try.
I'm posting some pixel art on my Twitter, for example. You can check this.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so now we can do a bit of shout outs and then we can move on to questions about Godot. So, guys, where can people follow you? I'll be also adding these links afterwards to the show notes and whatnot, of course, but do share.
Right. So on Twitter, which is the platform that I share to all of them, and but on Twitter, I guess there's the most attention on the game. It's Gonzelvis, like the Twitter handle. Also with a similar name, like in most platforms, like Mastodon and Instagram and on Threads. And I recently created a Blue Sky, but really, it's starting to get a ridiculous amount of social media networks to follow. But that's it for me.
Nice. And Jakub?
On my side, main thing is definitely Twitter, Metriko_dev.
Nice.
But it's a little bit dead because I have a lot of work. So yeah, not time for posting pixel art. I'm posting mainly pixel art there. However, I have itch.io account. It's Metriko itch.io, and I'm posting there my game jam games. There is one I'm still really like. It's made in Godot and it has a fluid physics. So yeah,
nice. That's hard to do.
Yeah, the idea was to make a Metroidvania game with puzzles inspired by water bending from Avatar.
Oh right.
And it works. it was done.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I will check it out afterwards.
Nice. And one more thing, but it's really that it's my YouTube. You can check there some videos like the game I mentioned, Equality. I'm showcasing this there. My YouTube channel is Metriko Dev, and that's about it, I think.
Wonderful. And of course, let's not forget the most important one is going to be Stunt Xpress on Steam to go wishlist it and follow it, right?
Thank you for reminding us.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one. And apart from that, I'm actually extremely excited about the game you mentioned. So yeah, all of these links will be in the show notes. So on YouTube, when I get the permission to put links there, I'll put those there. But everywhere else, they're going to be there right away. Now onto Godot, right? So you mentioned transition from Godot 3 to Godot 4. It was about a year ago, I think, when roughly a year ago, when Godot 4 came out. In general, what do you say about current Godot 4 whichever version you're using, compared to Godot 3?
Which one of us is going to go first?
Let's go for you.
All right. So it's a bit. So from my perspective, as someone who had no experience with other game engines beforehand, in Godot 3, especially 3.5, that's more or less where I crystallized for a long time. I really felt at home. It was really like opening Blender. It felt like getting home from hard work and putting your comfortable slippers on. you felt good inside it. And although I'm saying getting back home and putting your slippers, but actually you're actually doing some work.
But in your slippers, always better.
It's as comfortable as. And so the idea, when we were for a long time, and I think the first person to suggest it was Jakub, to suggest that we move to Godot 4, and I was highly against it. Why? Because from where I come from, you don't switch softwares, you don't upgrade softwares in the middle of production. Never. You don't install new plugins. What you start with is what you finish with, and this is like a very important rule, at least in the film, the type of workflow that we had in the studio. So for me, it was a bad idea that I wanted to finish this game with Godot 3. And I wasn't seeing why, what kind of advantages were there in upgrading, and I only saw the potential downsides. The fact that it's new, it's the syntax will change, and I will be having to learn things from scratch, and I wasn't sure, like, if the scenes, all this 3D materials that not materials but assets, the whole thing, would it translate well? Will it be lost in the process? Will I have a very tedious time?
Has that changed after the port?
As of now, I'm not talking about the process, but as of now, I can tell you that I don't regret it. I think it was, we waited for the right moment to do it, and we did it, and now I'm very happy, and I can see why it was worth it.
Which version of Godot 4 are you on now, then?
It's a good question. I think I have a custom build.
Oh, you've got you're building right from the GitHub, aren't you?
In the Pineapple Works, we have developers experience with the source of Godot, so we can always prepare a custom build for our clients, right? To make their needs, to fix bugs and such. And in this example, we fixed a bug related to importing GLTF files, because there was a nasty one that would break every material and scene because of the duplication of UIDs.
Every single one, really?
It was like a virus. Everywhere you used the imported model, it would corrupt scene because of duplicated UIDs in the resources, materials, and such.
That's nasty.
Well, it was something. It was something I experienced on the game jams, and it was one of the reasons why I didn't want also to move to the 4.x, and I wanted to wait a little bit. When the 4.3 released, right? It was 0.43.
Well, 4.3 is still in beta now.
No, 4.2.
4.2, okay.
4.2, yeah, exactly. Where the 4.2 released, I thought the problems were fixed, so I checked this. I didn't have issues, so I thought, okay, it's the moment we should move. When there will be a moment, it will be now. So we switched to the 4.2. I ported the game in about 3 days, 2 days, something like that.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, that was quick because I didn't have much time for that. I had to work fast because the thing is, the file couldn't work on the game if game was in the process of porting.
Absolutely.
So every single day we used for porting, it was 1 day of not working on the game. because
that's not strictly true because I can still make assets for the game.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the using engine.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rafael had to work on the assets, and it was the moment when he had stuff that he could make outside of the engine. So that was time for me to port.
Right.
So yeah, that was that had to be made quick.
So that was just to get things in perspective. Those 3 days, those were like that, and it's amazing how fast you went. And I realized going through all the scenes and all the scripts, I realized like how fast it had to be because it's huge, and it really gives you like the you get a bit dizzy to just contemplate the sheer amount of work.
I can imagine.
But then I also have to mention the fact that you also left a trail of destruction behind you, which I spent probably more than a month.
Oh wow!
mending.
What was this trail of distraction? What was it?
Yeah,
nothing serious, but all the UIs were broken. There were a number of forgotten syntactic.
yes, there were stuff like the Godot 4.x have a new font resource, right? Dynamic font.
Yes,
So
that changes.
it doesn't contain a size font. So you have to set this outside of the resource. So every text after porting was small, right? This is one of the things that was broken. But my porting goal was to make a game playable again.
Absolutely.
You can run this.
It's kind of a magical moment when finally the game runs. It's like, whoa!
Yes. I was pressing this play button and just waiting for the moment where there is no errors.
Oh yeah. And was there? I'm actually quite curious about this. Were there any immediate improvements when running it in Godot 4, or were there any immediate, disadvantages that you could see?
There wasn't improvement at all at the beginning. After porting to 4.x, everything was just worse. The lighting was broken, right? The UI was broken.
No.
And this nasty bug I mentioned about duplicated UIDs were breaking our project. For example, Rafael was working on something and he imported the model and everything just stopped working. The scenes were broken. We had to reroll the commits and stuff.
Another anecdote about that point in time is that I was looking at how it looked, and I was seeing like there's something wrong. Like the environment resource is like strange, or did change, or when I'm not grasping here. And then I realized that every single mesh in the project was how to say, it wasn't corrupted, but it had the tangents
or something.
Not normals, but like the tangents were all wrong, and so that's why
the mesh had to be re-imported.
Yeah,
basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why it looked so weird. Like it looked like a lighting issue, whereas it was the meshes that got in the process of.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about what's going on internally or what changed in the way that meshes were stored, but I think maybe Jakub knows. But I guess there was some change there, so that meant that I really had to manually re-import every single one of them.
A bit of a pain. It would be great if there was a button for re-import all of the pictures now.
Yeah, I'm really missing this from Unity. Just re-import all button.
Yeah, just re-import all of it, please, now.
Yeah. But some of the stuff I think we had to just re-export from the Blender to, right?
Yeah. I mean, also we definitely use this opportunity to do a lot of house cleaning and in the files and cleaning the textures.
Hierarchy of files, the
Awesome.
entire architecture of game, like switching between levels, level generation,
Nice.
generation of AI, path for AI.
Was
stuff
this the
like
time
that.
where a lot of the refactoring took place?
Yes, that was the time because I finally could use features from the GD script that made refactoring possible.
Mhm.
Because if I would refactor this in the 3.x, I would have to refactor this again in 4.x because,
Right.
for example, of lambda functions, right?
Yes. Yes.
Or a subword for custom resources, export of custom resources.
So good, by the way. So good.
Yeah.
Custom resources. They're just so much better in 4.0.
In the 3.x, everything was just a resource if you had a custom resource.
I remember those days. They feel like medieval times to me now.
Yes. Lambda functions are also very nice to have, especially for signals. And typing. Like array types.
But you'll never find me saying bad things about Godot 3.5 because very good memories from that.
Solid.
From those
I still have one project that I'm working on. It's an educational game. It's in Godot 3.5, and I have to say the overall experience is worse than what I have now in 4.2. But every time I come back to Godot 3.5, it just feels solid. I like it about that.
Oh, yes. Actually, you're switching between both of them. How do you manage?
I don't. Every time I come back to 3.5, I'm like, I like it here, but just for a bit, just for 15 minutes, I've got to change this little thing and re-export it, and I'll be gone.
But maybe we are forgetting of one major thing that made us, because this was an opportunity to refactor and all that, where we were forgetting about the main thing that made me actually finally, seed, which is
Jolt.
Jolt.
Knew it.
Of course, Jolt. Yes.
Yeah, better physics, right?
Yes.
Massive shout out to the people involved in this, the creator and the plugin maintainer.
I second this. They are crazy good. And do tell, did the physics improve?
That was actually only thing that improved right after porting.
Okay.
Came to the
right away. Right away. It was just an immediate improvement.
It was improvement, but it required some adjustments. I mean, the numbers, right? But yeah, it felt just better overall. However, everything else after porting wasn't good. It wasn't good experience. It wasn't like we ported the game to 4.x and wow, it's much better. It was worse. We had to work hard to make it better than it was in 3.x.
Apart from the physics.
Apart from the physics, yeah.
No, but also, I mean, if you all these things I was telling you about, the meshes that got corrupted. But once we figured this out, we also had like this weird situation with the LODs. Remember that, Jakub?
Yes, I remember this. And LOD in the 4.x is broken especially for the stuff like bridges. We just don't use LOD because LOD generation is not there yet. Okay. Let's just say it that way.
But so as soon as we sorted this issue, I mean, you could see I could see some very obvious visual improvements. Even like the shadows, they have much more nuance that without doing anything. It's just out of the box, and it looks, even though it's a stylized game, I don't use any specularity. Everything is just it's more or less flat, that way.
But you still see the shadows.
The shadows are much better than
shadows were always very difficult to get right in 3.x.
Yeah. So these are, I mean, you still have to do the adjustments about having like this contact thing and the bias and but overall, yeah, better results in that.
Hmm.
Once you figured out the mesh corruption problem.
Those things need to be solved, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also have a quick question about the world environment. I think this is going to be the last question. So this question about the world environment, how much post-processing are you using? As in, how much of the game is just pure textures and the light setup, and how much of it is post-process adjustments?
Very little post processing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really it's very basic. You have to realize that when I started doing this with the same style that hasn't changed since like 2 years now, I've been working on the game for 2 years now.
Wow.
And yeah, it's pretty basic thing, just in the processing, just a wee bit color correction, but apart from that, everything's the textures.
Oh, that's
And
nice. All right. So this a little bit of color correction. What is this color correction? Is it from white to a little bit of orange, or what is it?
uh,
It feels
it's
like orange.
it's a secret recipe.
Secret sauce.
No, it's I think that there's also ambient color that plays. Actually, well, the most important thing is the fact that I use I have a very I'm very strict with palette.
Yep.
And so these are the colors I'm using. I'm not using any other colors, and that changes everything from the get-go. You mix this with environment color, then this I'm telling you this, but it's the process of a lot of tweaking. But this most of it was done way back then, when I was just trying, adjusting, getting it right, and then actually with the first posts, it kind of almost not changed until now.
Yeah. That's very visible, by the way, how consistent the art style has remained. And how did you find or create the color palette?
Well, I found the color palette. It is not my invention. It's a color palette by it's Carrie Lake. It's a pixel artist from the US, and she shared this palette on Low Spec. And I don't know if you know the website.
Low Spec is the place. Yeah.
And yeah, I was browsing palettes, and I stumbled upon this one, and I thought it was really good, so I stuck with it. I did already thank Carrie for this palette. I'm actually I appreciate palettes, although I'm not very. I usually don't do them myself, but I appreciate a good palette when I see it.
Again, it's healthy restrictions, I think, when it comes to palettes, especially good palettes. Yeah.
Yes.
In my game jam projects, there is always that one moment when I'm thinking about the palette, because every game jam I'm doing with pixel art.
Yep.
And because I'm pixel artist too, and this is the easiest way to create the graphics for me. And there is always that one moment when, okay, Jakub, time for working on the palette. Yeah, and every single game jam game have a different palette.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I always wanted to do that one game jam in 3D where I limit myself to a super limited palette of just like 4 colors at most. And everything has to be those 4 colors. But haven't got
around to the Obra Dinn would be a good example of that.
Ooh, yeah. There are some really good, very visually powerful games with a very limited palette. Yeah. But anyways, peeps, this has been going on for long enough. Let's not drag it out any longer. Thank you very much for being here. And
thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's been great.
We didn't talk about the game, actually, when I think about this.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it next time. But regardless, we did talk about a lot of interesting stuff, and I do recommend for anyone listening to this to really head over to Steam and search for Stunt Xpress, or click a link somewhere where you can find it, and definitely check out it. It's really good stuff.